𝓤𝓾𝓷𝓷 and a very good morning, brothers and sisters in the Dhamma. Welcome to the weekly Sunday Pūjā in Unison and Dhamma Sharing Online, an initiative of the 𝓟𝓷𝓷 Council of Malaysia and is jointly hosted by MSBS and DBV. It's certainly good to see all of you once again on this online platform. Today is the 26th of May, 2024. Well, to begin this Visakha Puja, we shall invite Sister May to read out the offerings in English. What do you say, May?
Thank you very much, Brother Terence. 𝓤𝓾𝓷𝓭𝓪 and good morning to all brothers and sisters in the Dhamma. Welcome to our weekly online Sunday Pūjā and Dhamma sharing. Before we begin the Puja chanting, I shall read out the significance of the virtual offerings that we shall make with full respect to our blessed teacher, the Buddha. Now let us compose our minds and reflect on the words being read out. Offering of lights. May we offer these candles burning brightly out of deep respect and veneration to our enlightened master, the Buddha. May these lights symbolically guide us to the light of the Dhamma, which dispels the darkness of greed with the light of generosity, the gloominess of hatred with the light of love, and the darkness of ignorance with the light of wisdom, through the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha. Offering of joss sticks and incense. May we offer these joss sticks and incense out of deep respect and veneration to our blessed master, the Buddha. May the fragrance of these joss sticks and incense be pleasing unto the gods and devas. May our good deeds be like the fragrance of these joss sticks, cultivating compassion, patience, tolerance, understanding, and love towards all living beings. Offering of water. May we offer this water to symbolize our aspiration to cultivate the virtues of calmness, clarity, and purity. Let it remind us to diligently cleanse ourselves of our spiritual defilements and delusion through the cultivation of generosity, compassion, and wisdom. Offering of flowers. These flowers too we offer out of deep respect and gratitude to our compassionate master, the Buddha. These flowers, sweet, beautiful, and choice, are clustered at the feet of our noble master. Beautiful as they are now, they will soon, with passing of time, wilt and fade and be cast away. Reflecting thus on this very nature of unsatisfactoriness, impermanence, and soullessness, let us tread the path shown by the Buddha for the eradication of sufferings here and now. Now let us commence the Sunday Pūjā chanting by giving our highest salutations to the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha by saying sadhu 3 times. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi. Dhammang saranang gacchami Sanghang saranang gacchami Dutiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami Dutiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami Dutiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami Tatiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami Tatiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami Tatiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami Panangtipata veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami Adinādāna veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami Kāmesu micchāchāra veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami Musāvādā veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami Surameraya majjapamadatthāna veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami Itipiso bhagava arahang samma sambuddho Vijjacharana sampanno sugato lokavidu Anuttaro purisa dhamma sarati satta deva manussanang putto bhagavati Swakato bhagavata dhammo sandittiko akaliko ehipassiko opanayiko paccattāṃ vedittabbo vinyuhiti Supatipanno bhagavato sāvaka saṅgho Ujupatipanno bhagavato sāvaka saṅgho Nyāyapatipanno bhagavato sāvaka saṅgho Samicipatipanno bhagavato sāvaka saṅgho Yadidang cattari purisa yugani atta purisa puggala Esa bhagavato sāvaka saṅgho Ahuneyo Pahuneyo Dakhineyo Anjalikaraneyo Anuttarang punya ketang lokasati
วันดามิเจติยังสัพบังสัพบาตาเนสุปฏิติตังสารีริกดาตุมหาโบธิงบุตตารูปังสักลังสดายัสสโมเลนิสินโนวาสัพ pariwijayang aka patto sabanyutang satta wande tang bodhipadapang ime ete mahabodhi 𝓢𝓾𝓷𝓷 pujita ahang pite namassami bodhi raja namatute kana sarapadittena dipena tamadang sina 𝓤𝓾𝓷𝓫 sambuddhang pujayami tamonudang ganda sambara yuttena dupena hang sugandina pujaye pujaniyantang puja bhajana muttamang adiwase tuno bante paniyang parikappitang anukampang upadaya patiganhatu muttamang adiwase tuno bante bojanang parikappitang anukampang upadaya patiganhatu muttamang adiwase tuno bante kilana paccayang imang anukampang upadaya patiganhatu muttamang wanna ganda gunopetang etang kusuma santating pujayami munindassa siripada 𝓤𝓷𝓲𝓼𝓷 pujemi buddhang kusumena nena punyena metena cahotu mokkang pupang milayati mata idang me kayo tatayati winasa bawang akasata ca bummatta dewa naga mahittika punyantang anumoditwa cirang rakantu loka sasanang akasata ca bummatta dewa naga mahittika punyantang anumoditwa cirang rakantu desanang akasata ca bummatta dewa naga mahittika punyantang anumoditwa cirang rakantu mang parangti dewo wassatu kalena sassa sampati hetu ca pitto bhawatu loko ca raja bhawatu dhammiko idang me nyatinang hotu sukita hontu nyatayo idang me nyatinang hotu sukita hontu nyatayo idang me nyatinang hotu sukita hontu nyatayo imina punya kamena mame bala samagamo satang samagamo hotu yawa nibbana pattiya kayena waca cittena pamadena maya katang accayang kamame bante buri panya tathagata kayena waca cittena pamadena maya katang accayang kamame Dhamma sanditikka akalika kayena waca cittena pamadena maya katang accayang kamame sangha supatipanna anuttara.
Karaniya matta kusalena yantang santang padang abhisamecca sakko uju ca suju ca suwaco cassa mudu anatimani santus sako ca subaro ca apakicco ca salla hukawutti santindriyo ca nipako ca appagabbo kulesu ananugiddo nacakuddang samacare kinci yena vinyu pare upawadeyong sukino wa kemino hontu sabbe satta bawantu sukitata ye kecipana butati tasavata varawa anawasesa digawa ye mahantawa majjima rasa kanukatula dittawa yeva addita ye ca dure wasanti avidure bhutawa sambhave siva sabbe satta bhavantu sukitatta na paro parang nikubbeta nati manyeta katta cinang kanci biaro sana padika sanya nanya manya seduk kemicaya matayata niyang putang ayusa eka putta manurakke evang pisab bebutesu manasang bawaye aparimanang mettang ca sabbelokasming manasang bawaye aparimanang uddang ado catiriyanca asang badang awerang asepatang titang carang nisinnowa sayanova yavetas sewigatamiddo etang sating aditteya brahma metang viharang idamahu ditting ca anupagamma silava dassanena sampanno kame suvineya gedang nahi jatu gabbaseyang punaretiti etena sacca vajjena sottite hotu sabbada etena sacca vajjena sottite hotu sabbada etena sacca vajjena sottite hotu sabbada sadhu sadhu sadhu.
Thank you very much, Sir May, Sir Mingsi, and Sir Lily for today's Sunday Pūjā chanting. Now, back with us this week, we have Brother Ghatikara Loo to share on the Majjhima Nikaya 123, the wonderful and marvelous qualities of the Blessed One. Let's hear what Brother Loo have to say. Over to you, Brother Loo.
Thank you very much, Brother Terence, and a very good morning to everyone, brothers and sisters in the Dhamma. I'm very happy, this morning that I'm able to share and discuss the Dhamma with you this morning. Okay, so before we begin with today's Dhamma discussion and sharing, first of all, let us put our palms together in Anjali and pay our highest and deepest homage and respect to the Buddha, the Blessed One, whom through his great effort, his compassion, and his great sacrifice, he has rediscovered the path to liberation, and that has enabled us to practice the true Dhamma. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Okay, very good morning again, brothers and sisters in the Dhamma. Okay, so for the Dhamma sharing this morning, I've actually selected a sutta, from the Majjhima Nikaya, which is a collection, of the middle length discourses of the Blessed One. And this is actually from Majjhima Nikaya, Sutta number 123. It is a pretty easy to remember number, and also very interesting number 123. And the topic itself, is equally interesting as well, that actually records, a conversation between the Blessed One and Venerable Ananda, with regard to the marvelous, and astounding and incredible qualities of the Buddha, the Blessed One. And as you know, we just celebrated Vesak Day just last Wednesday. Okay, and of course, this Vesak Day, is actually a very important occasion for Buddhists, all around the world, and it actually commemorates, three significant and momentous events, in the Buddha's life, which we all know, in respect of the birth of the Bodhisattva, in his last birth, from Tusita heaven, and the full enlightenment, of the Blessed One, as well as the Mahaparinibbana, the final passing, of the Buddha, in Kusinara. So all these three events are actually the momentous events that we Buddhists observe, to remember, and to reflect upon the importance, of this day, as we actually remember the teachings, that the Buddha has actually passed on, for so many centuries. I mean, if you actually reflect about it, it's like more than 2,600 years ago. And this has actually been transmitted, without fail, in its pristine form, from generation to generation for over 26 centuries. It's actually quite remarkable, right? If you think about it, and you can actually just have the suttas, collection of the Buddha's teachings right in front of you, on your table, right? And you can just flip through the pages and you can just read what the Buddha actually taught, and what the Buddha actually expounded on the Dhamma, as though, you were in India at the time, it's like you are being brought back in time, like a time capsule right back to India in Jambudvipa, where you could actually just virtually hear, what the Buddha actually expounded the Dhamma, And of course, we are also very lucky because we are able to actually read so many suttas. But if you actually were living in Jambudvipa at that time, just like I mentioned, like for example, what Nakula Pita, he remember this very devout lay Buddhist. He actually commented, that, or rather he reflected to himself that, he didn't have that much of an opportunity to meet the Buddha because the Buddha was always, traveling around, in Savatthi, in perhaps in the Kosala kingdom. He went to other villages to spread the Dhamma. So it was also rather rare, that, lay Buddhists could actually hear a Dhamma being taught by the Buddha, straight from the Buddha's mouth, other disciples perhaps, but from the Buddha, it was actually a rather rare opportunity to listen to the Buddha, but if you actually compare it to now, where we actually have all the suttas, in front of us, you can just read, and understand what the Buddha actually thought. So we are actually living, in a very fortunate time, as you know, we are actually living in a time where the Buddha Sasana, is still very much alive, still very much being supported and upheld, by the Sangha, the monastics, and of course, the well-practiced, lay people, So we actually, help to actually preserve, the Buddha Sasana, and right now we are living in a very, very actually at a fortuitous time, very, very fortunate time when the Buddha Sasana is still very much is still very much available, and we are able to learn the teachings, of the Blessed One, in its pristine form, which is unadulterated. So that is something that we should actually remind ourselves, and if we actually look at it, in terms of the rarity, of the arising the arising of the Blessed One, right? Maybe I can just share my slides before I continue, before I forget. Sorry. Okay. If you can just refer to this AN 1.170 itself from the 𝓟𝓾𝓷𝓷𝓷 Nikaya, which is the numerical discourses, of the Buddha. As you know, this numerical discourses actually records the Buddha's teaching based on numbers. So to book 1 to book 11, so, and the central theme is actually based on numbers. So in this book of 1, of course, the focus or the theme is actually, number 1, and we can actually see from here, from this Sutta 1.170, from 𝓟𝓾𝓷𝓭𝓪 Nikaya itself, and this sutta itself actually says the Buddha actually declares this, and tells the monks. It says, one person monks, there's this one person, monks, who arises in this world for the welfare and happiness of the people, all of compassion for the world, for the benefit, for the welfare and happiness of gods and humans, and who is this one person? It is actually the realized one, the perfected one, the fully awakened one, the perfectly self-awakened Buddha. This is one person who arises in the world out of compassion, for the people, for gods and humans, for all the beings, in this whole, entire cosmos and universe. The Buddha actually arises, and it's a very rare, extremely rare occasion, that the Buddha actually arises, and you may actually ask yourself, actually how rare, is the rising, of the Buddha. For this, if you're interested, actually, you can actually go to this Digha Nikaya 14. Digha Nikaya is actually a collection of the long discourses of the Buddha, and this sutta is actually from DN number 14, the Digha Nikaya Sutta number 14, and the title of this is actually the Great Discourse on Traces Left Behind. Means it's actually on the legacy, the legacy of the Buddha, Because remember, we always hear of people saying, oh, we pay respect to the 24 Buddhas, and we actually, make offerings, and, dedicate, our practice, our merits, to the, the 24 past Buddhas, in this current eon, we always hear that being mentioned, right? But if you actually look at DN 14 itself, actually, the Buddha only makes reference, to not to 24, but if you see afterwards, the number of Buddhas, that the Buddha makes reference to, actually, it's not 24, Okay, if you actually see this DN 14, it says on past lives, and of course the sutta starts off by saying, Evang me Sutam, so I've heard at one time the Buddha was staying in Savatthi, right? And then in Anandapindika's park, and there was this time where the monks, they returned from the alms round, So after they returned from the alms round, right, they had their meal, after they had their meal, then several monks actually sat together in the pavilion, by the 𝓟𝓾𝓷𝓷𝓷 tree, there's this tree called 𝓟𝓾𝓷𝓷𝓷 tree, and they actually started to have this Dhamma talk, this topic actually arose among this group of monks, and they were actually talking about what? Talking about past lives, past lives, and they were actually talking about, so it was in a past life, and such it was in a past life. So they were talking about past lives, So and then with the clairaudience and the clairvoyance and the super normal powers, the superhuman powers that the Buddha actually had, the Buddha actually heard this discussion among the monks, So he got up from his seat and he went to the pavilion, you know, and then of course he asked the monks, what were you actually discussing about, you know, before I actually interrupted you all? What conversation was actually left unfinished? So the monks told the Blessed One, he said, Bhante, you know, we were actually discussing about past lives, you know, about lives, you know, the past lives, you know. So that was a topic that we were discussing before the Blessed One arrived. And the Buddha then asked them, so would you like to hear a Dhamma talk, you know, on the subject of past lives? So, you know, then the monk said, yes, now is the time, you know, Bhante, you know, now is the time, you know, let Bhagava, you know, Holy One, you know, let the Buddha, you know, give a Dhamma talk, you know, on the subject of past lives. The monks will listen and remember it, you know. Then you see what the Buddha said here. 91 eons ago, you know, this kappa, you know, this eon is actually the time, you know, where actually the one whole cycle, one whole system actually, it actually arises, it exists, you know, and it actually ceases. That is actually the length of one aeon, you know. And of course, the Buddha actually, many suttas actually describe how long an aeon is, you know. Remember about the kasi cloth, 100 years, you know, you just wipe, you know, this one yojana long, 1 yojana wide, 1 yojana tall, you know, and 1 yojana is about 7 kilometers. So it's like such a huge mountain, you know, you just use one kasi cloth and just wipe it once 100 years. And, you know, even this mountain is actually being actually you know, wiped out, you know, using this piece of fine kasi cloth. The eon is still actually not over yet, you know. It's actually hasn't been you know, expanded yet, you know, this one aeon. So you see, this 91 eons ago, there was this Buddha Vipassi, you know, Vipassi Buddha actually arose in this world 91 eons ago. And 31 eons ago, you know, the Buddha Sikhi Buddha arose, you know. And then 31 eons ago, this Vesabu Buddha arose in the world, you know, perfectly self-awakened, you know. And that was actually the eon before the current eon, you know. And in the present fortunate eon, you see, the Buddha says the present fortunate eon. So we are actually living in a very fortunate and very fortuitous eon right now. Because you know why? Because the Buddha says in this eon itself, you know, we already have had, you know, 4 Buddhas, you know, perfectly self-awakened Buddhas who have arisen in this world, you know, starting from Kakusanda Buddha, you know, Buddha 𝓤𝓾𝓷𝓸𝓷, and then there's also the Buddha Kassapa, you know. So 3 Buddhas, you know, who preceded Gautama Buddha, you know, who have arisen in this world. And then now, you know, Gautama Buddha, you know, has actually arisen. You know. So in this current eon itself, we have had 4 Buddhas, perfectly self-awakened Buddhas, blessed ones, who have actually arisen in this world. And of course, you know, the Buddha, you know, has also actually spoken about the next Buddha who will be coming, who is Metteyya Buddha, you know. And of course, the Bodhisattva, you know, will only descend upon earth when the Buddha Sasana is no longer available. You know. So there's still a long time, you know, before the Bodhisattva, you know, from Tusita heaven will descend, you know, onto earth, you know, and then we'll see the next, you know, Buddha arising in this eon. That's going to be like a long, long time from here before the world system destructs. Okay, so so that's why the Buddha says you better make sure you make the effort to actually, you know, get out from this samsara as soon as you can. You know, don't wait until the next Buddha comes, because you never know whether you meet him or not. So you can see from here, you know, the arising of the Buddha, you know, is indeed, you know, a very rare and momentous, you know, occasion. You know, can you imagine 91 eons ago, you know, Vipassi Buddha actually arose. You know, so you can see, you know, in terms of the rarity, you know, of the Buddha, you know, himself is something that's actually quite remarkable. You know, that itself is actually a very important quality. You know, as Buddhists, we should know, and not just in terms of rarity, you know, but if you actually look at in terms of the range, you know, and power of the Buddha, you know, it is something that one can never fathom completely. You know, it is actually, the Buddha says, unconjecturable. You know, when you can conjecture something, means you can actually fathom and understand, right? So when you say unconjecturable, means it's unfathomable, you know, and inconstruable, you know, means like you cannot understand, you know, you cannot really truly understand, you know, the power and range of the Buddha, you know, you can actually more or less like guess, you know, or surmise from what the suttas actually provide in terms of, you know, what the Buddha actually did or performed in terms of his miracles and psychic powers, but you can never actually fully understand, you know, the extent of the power of the Buddha, because the Buddha on many occasions say he doesn't want to display, you know, his psychic powers, you know, because that is not the basis of, you know, making others, you know, truly understand the Dhamma. You know, people will just believe you just because you display some supernatural powers, and on the basis of that, you know, you become Buddhist, you know. And the Buddha doesn't want that. The Buddha actually wants you to truly understand the Dhamma, you know, before you become Buddhist and actually become a follower of the Dhamma. You know, you must really understand the essence of the Dhamma, and not just because he displays some psychic powers and you're awestruck, you know, or it's, oh, you know, I want to become a follower. The Buddha says, no, that is not the way, you know, that's not the way the 𝓤𝓾𝓷𝓷, you know, actually teaches the Dhamma, you know. So you can see from AN 4.77, the sutta is called Achintita Sutta, you know, unconjecturable, you know. The Buddha actually declares this. He says that there are these 4 unconjecturables. They are not to be conjectured about. Means that you cannot actually try to understand. If you try to understand, you know, you actually go mad, you know, you actually become insane, you know, and you become you become like really frustrated, vexation. You become frustrated to anyone who actually tries to understand these 4 things. And what are these 4? You know, the Buddha says the Buddha range of the Buddhas means the range of powers of the Buddha is something that's unconjecturable, that's not to be fathomed. You know, that will bring madness, you know, and vexation and frustration to anyone who even attempts to even think understand it. You know, and the jhana range of a person in jhana means the Buddha says if a person is in jhana, you know, the power that this person has, you know, in terms for someone who is in jhana is actually unconjecturable. You know, it's you can never truly understand the power in terms of, you know, how this person can actually understand it in terms of the Dhamma, you know, and also in terms of I mean, not necessarily in terms of psychic powers, you know, because not all arahants have psychic powers, right? If they are liberated by wisdom, you know. But you know, in terms of the jhanic power itself, in terms of being able to understand and penetrate Dhamma, the power, you can never actually truly understand, you know, the person in jhana, how much of the penetration of Dhamma this person can actually bring about, you know. And the precise working of the results of karma, you know, this karma vipaka is something also that cannot actually be conjectured. You can never try to understand, like, why is it that, you know, some people, you know, they're actually well behaved, you know, they conduct themselves well by body, speech, and mind, they observe the 5 precepts, they don't do the 10 unwholesome actions, the 10 dukkha-charitas, you know, and they also go for retreats, you know, they meditate. Now, why is it that upon the dissolution of this body, and when he's reborn in the upper realms, you know, in the woeful plains, you know. The Buddha already mentioned that, you know, in the great exposition of the karma, that, you know, that this the next destination is like someone throwing a stick, you know, whether the stick lands wherever is it, you know, nobody knows for sure, you know, where the next destination is, unless, you know, you are a sotapanna, you know, then, you know, for sure, you know, your destination will not be woeful plains, but you know, either, you know, as a human being, you know, a very high ranking human being, as an aristocrat, you know, or, you know, in the Dewa realms, you know. But if not, if you are just a Putujana, then there is actually no assurance, no guarantee, you know, that, you know, if you're well behaved, means necessarily, you know, you actually be reborn, you know, in the, you know, happy destination. So that's why this precise working of the resolved karma is something that cannot be fathomed completely, you know. And of course, the conjecture about the origin of the world, you know, how does the world arise, you know? Where is the first starting point, you know, where we start to have human beings, you know, where in all this, like, how does the world form, you know, where do the first human beings begin, you know, and how do we understand, you know, how do we evolve into currently? So a lot of these questions, people actually try to ascribe, you know, some sort of semblance of understanding, you know, by different religions, you know. But the Buddha says, you know, this is something that's unconjecturable, you know, and it's actually not meaningful for you to understand all this. It's like this simile of the poison arrow, you know, you're being shot and then you keep thinking about who made the arrow, you know, where you know, what poison was used, you know, where was the poison made, you know, and all this. It doesn't actually solve the situation. What you should do now is actually to extract the arrow out, you know, and quickly, you know, remove the poison, right? You know, but instead you ask all these questions which are irrelevant and not important. So that's why the Buddha says you should actually act like as though your turban is on fire, and try to put out the fire as soon as possible. So that's why you see the range of the Buddha is actually, you know, quite remarkable, is actually, you cannot actually fathom and understand. You can say from AN 4.77. And to show the power of this Buddha, I want to share with you this sutta from Udana. Udana is actually like, inspired sayings of the Buddha, when Buddha sees something and he inspired, so it's actually recorded in Udana. Udana is actually from this, Khuddaka Nikaya, from the minor collections, of the Buddha's discourses. And this Udana is actually the inspired sayings of the Buddha, It's like upon some inspiration, the Buddha utters a certain verses, or certain suttas, and that itself is recorded in Udana. So this Udana is actually sutta number 7.5, and it's actually called Uddapana, Uddapana Sutta, right? And Uddapana is actually the well, So you see, at one time, the Buddha was actually traveling, among the Malas, this group of people, is this race called Malas, together with a large order of bhikkhus, and came to a Brahmin village of the Malas called 𝓤𝓾𝓳𝓪. They came to this kampong called 𝓤𝓾𝓳𝓪, and the householders in 𝓤𝓾𝓳 actually heard, oh, the recluse Gautama, the second son, who went forth from the second clan, has been journeying around the Malas together with a large order of bhikkhus, and has arrived at 𝓤𝓾𝓳. And these people of 𝓤𝓾𝓳, they must have had some grudges against the Buddha, or perhaps they must have heard something from other external ascetics, who actually degraded, or denounced, and basically downplayed and actually denounced the Dhamma taught by the Buddha. So they developed this dislike, and perhaps hatred as well, based on what they did to the Buddha, and they, what they did, they actually filled the well to the brim with grass and chaff, means they don't want the Buddha to have the water to drink, so they actually filled the well, they actually dump all the grass and all the chaff, all the rubbish, the chaff and all this into the well, so that the water becomes undrinkable. And of course the water is you cannot actually extract anything because it's full of grass, it's covered with grass, and so the water in the well cannot be extracted to be consumed, right? And they were thinking, don't let those shaven-headed recluses get water to drink, shaven-headed, they even call them like botak, and say, these shaven-headed recluses, don't actually let them get water to drink, Then the Buddha actually step off the road, and going up to the foot of a certain tree, he sat down on a seat prepared for him, So when he was seated there, the Buddha, actually told this Venerable Ananda, he told Venerable Ananda, come, Ananda, fetch me some water from that well. Then Venerable Ananda actually told the Buddha, of course, Venerable Ananda knew what had happened. So he told the Buddha, just now, Bhante, the Brahmin householders, of 𝓤𝓾 actually filled the well to the brim with grass and chaff, thinking, don't let those shaven-headed recluses get water to drink, because they didn't want the Buddha to drink, right? So they actually dump all the grass, the chaff, all the rubbish, into the well, so that the water was undrinkable, and they couldn't actually, get the water, to offer to the Buddha. And then the Buddha, of course, didn't say anything, Again, second time, the Buddha asked Venerable Ananda, come, Ananda, fetch me some water. And second time, Venerable Ananda explained. And then a third time, the Buddha again asked the Venerable Ananda, come, Ananda, fetch me some water from that well. Okay, since the Buddha has asked 3 times, right? So Venerable Ananda said, yes, Bhante, so he actually complied, So he actually then took the bowl, he went to the well, thinking, well, since the Buddha, I already told the Buddha, but the Buddha still insisted, okay, I will still go there and see for myself and tell the Buddha and report, right? And then Venerable Ananda, as Venerable Ananda was approaching the well, what happened was the well threw up all its grass and chaff from its mouth, Means all the grass and chaff, suddenly all got expelled, and burst out from the well, from the mouth of the well, and stood there, filled to the brim with pure, clean, clear water, as if it were overflowing, the water, instead of being contaminated, and dirty with all the rubbish and all the all the grass, that were thrown into the well, all these all these items are rubbish, all these unclean and all these unclean items and grass are all, got expelled, and all spill out, from the mouth of the well, and the whole well was filled to the brim, Now it's just now was really probably not to the brim, but now the whole well was filled to the brim with pure, clean, clear water as if it were overflowing, Then very much another thought, wow, this is really wonderful, this is remarkable, this is incredible, this is marvelous, the great supernormal power, that the Tathagata has, as I was approaching the well, it threw up all that grass and chaff from this mouth, and now stands filled to the brim with pure, clean water as if it were overflowing, And then taking water from the bowl, and of course, Venerable Ananda took water from the bowl, and he then, brought the bowl back to the Buddha and said, "It is indeed wonderful, it is indeed marvelous, a great supernormal power that the Tathagata has. This well, it actually spilled out all the grass and rubbish, and now is filled with pure, clean water, and up to the brim, as if it were overflowing with water, Drink water, Bante, drink the water, Sugata, the well-gone one, Sugata." Then, on realizing the significance, and then of course the Buddha uttered, the occasion of this inspired utterance. What use is there for a well, if there's water everywhere? When craving's root is severed, what should one go about seeking? So it's like, what use is there for a well? If there is water everywhere, it's like, it's like Buddha is actually saying, why when there's water everywhere, why should you actually, need a well, there's no need, it's like Buddha is saying, actually no need for me to actually crave for anything, because I've already uprooted all the defilements of, the ignorance, and the defilements of lobha, dosa, moha, I don't go around seeking anymore, there's no need. There's actually water everywhere. I don't need to actually crave for anything. It's like I don't need to crave, for water in the well. It's like the well becomes automatically clean for me. It's like I don't even need to crave for anything at all. Because I know I'm detached from all these cravings. I've uprooted all the cravings and clingings, and grasping. So the Buddha was actually very inspired by this, and so he uttered this. So you can see from this Uddana 7.5, 7.9, how wonderful and marvelous, the quality, of the Buddha, or that the Buddha actually possessed. It's like it's quite inconceivable. We can never fully understand, the power. And you can also another sutta I want to share with you also. Let me see. Let me see. There's another sutta. Yeah, also from in this MN75, if you have the chance to read this Magandiya, is actually an external ascetic, who of course also hated the Buddha, because the commentary says, this is not recorded in suttas, but commentary says that he actually converted this Magandiya's uncle, and his uncle became a monk, and this Magandiya was actually like an external ascetic, probably, another teaching, and he became very angry with the Buddha because, he actually like converted his uncle, into a Buddhist monk, and so he actually called the Buddha as like, a baby killer, It's like, you teach all these things, you actually, in a way, like you actually stop, the generation, of human race, he actually made this remark, and insulted the Buddha, and this, of course, you can see from this, this incident also, when the Buddha actually, the Buddha left this fire chamber, he was actually staying in this fire chamber, in this room called fire chamber, and the Buddha left to actually look for alms food, and then this Magandiya came, and told this this Brahmin, this Bharadvaja, he told this Mr. Bharadvaja, that he said that this Buddha is a sad sight, to behold, Mr. Bharadvaja, a very sad sight indeed, to see a bed for this Mr. Gautama, that is a baby killer, and this Brahmin, he said, hey, be careful what you say in the Bhagantiya, be careful, many astute, aristocrats and Brahmins and householders are devoted to this, Master Gautama. They're being guided by him in the noble system, the skillful teaching. And then this Magantiya said, even if I was to see, this Gautama face to face, Bharadvaja, I would say this to his face, that this Gautama is a baby killer. Why is that? For it came to me while I was sleeping. So when he said that, the Buddha actually heard what he said. Can you imagine the power of the Buddha actually has the clay audience that's purified superhuman being? The Buddha heard this discussion between this Bharadvaja and Magantiya, and coming out from the retreat, he went to this Brahmin's fire chamber and sat on a grass mat. And then this Brahmin, this Bharadvaja, went to the Buddha and exchanged greetings with him. So when these polite pleasantries are over, the Buddha asked his Bharadvaja, Bharadvaja, did you have a discussion with the wanderer Magantiya about this grass mat? So when he said this, this Brahmin was shocked and awestruck. He said to the Buddha, I wanted to mention this to you very thing, Master Gautama, but you brought it up before I even had a chance. So it's like, you can imagine that this Buddha can actually hear, whatever conversations are so far away that, someone actually said, about the Dhamma, about the wrong teachings, or about, something about him and all this that he wanted to rectify, and maybe he also knew that the person, this Brahmin, he might have a grudge against the Buddha, but he had that inherent, ability or the potential, to actually attain maybe Sotapatti or maybe Sakadagami, or maybe all the way to Arahant. Maybe the Buddha knew, this person actually had the inherent potential, the spiritual potential, to be enlightened, that day itself, So the Buddha, will either travel there, or he would actually, like, using his psychic power, he would, fly there, and he will actually convert all this. So you can imagine that the psychic power that the Buddha has is really like unfathomable, inconceivable, it's really inconceivable, and you can see, here the Buddha could actually like in this DN14, like I mentioned to you, the Buddha actually spoke of, about the three Buddhas, about like 91 eons ago, 91 eons ago, this Vipassi Buddha, arose, and then this Sikhi Buddha, 𝓤𝓷𝓲𝓷 Buddha, and the Buddha could even recollect, like even the current eon, in the the Kakusanda, Kodagamana, Kassapa, and then Gautama Buddha, and then Buddha could even foresee the next Buddha that's coming, in this current world system, So and the Buddha could actually, if you think about it, the fact that the Buddha can actually recollect all these Buddhas means the traces of the 𝓷𝓾𝓷𝓷, even though they're past in Paranibbana, the energy is still there, It's not as if, I mean, of course, the five aggregates don't arise because they're already arahants, they are like, perfectly self-awakened. But you see, the energy trace is still exists in the universe now, that the Buddha could actually tap into that frequency, and he could actually he could actually foresee, he could actually like read past lives, of the past Buddha all the way to 91 eons, It's like the Buddha could tune into that frequency because he had that sort of psychic power, that sort of samadhi, So it's not as if, the Arahants and Buddhas, once you pass into Paranibbana means like nothing, habis, nothing, it's just empty. Actually, it's not true, If you see from all these suttas, the Buddha could actually tune into this frequency, and he could actually, even, could actually reflect, and then he could actually recall all these past life of the past Buddhas by tuning into that energy spectrum, So, of course, the five aggregates don't arise, because they've already uprooted all the factors, but the energy trace is still there. That's why this is about the trace of, the Buddha, the traces of the Buddha and all the Arahants. So you see the power of the Buddha, is so wonderful. And the Buddha could actually, what do you call that? Could actually recall, to the minutest details, if you see from DN14, what the Buddha said, you see, he said he could recall this Vipassi Buddha, Sikhi Buddha, Vesapu Buddha. I mean, these three Buddhas were in the past world cycle, before our world cycle, And they were born as aristocrats, means Khattiyas, just like the Buddha, Khattiyas into these aristocrat families. The Buddhas Kakusanda, 𝓤𝓷𝓲𝓪, and Kassapa were born as Brahmins. They're actually of the Brahmin caste. And I was born, as an aristocrat into an aristocrat family, which is a Khattiya family, just like Buddha Vipassika and Buddha Vesabu. So to see the Buddha could actually tune into that energy, he could actually recall the past lives, And Kondana, was the clan of Vipassi, Siki and Vesabu. It means the clan, mean what's the clan? What is actually your it's like your race, We have this like the Lim family, the Tan family, the Go family, right? So here is like the Kondana, was the clan, of this Vipassi Siki Vesabu, and Kassapa, was a clan of Kakusanda, 𝓤𝓷𝓲𝓪, and Kassapa, And of course, for our Gautama Buddha, Gautama is the clan, So for Vipassi, lifespan, you see the Buddha could even recall when Vipassi Buddha was around, the lifespan of the humans was actually 80,000 years. Can you imagine, when Vipassi Buddha was around, the lifespan of human beings was 80,000 years. When Siki Buddha was actually around, lifespan of human beings was 70,000 years. Can you imagine you live that long as a human being compared to now? It's like if you can live beyond 75, you're already considered, having a long life, which is average life, right? And of course, if you live up to 100 years, so you're considered very, very fortunate, very good karma, that you have, observed your 5 precepts well, of, non injuring and non-killing of beings. That's why you can live, up to 100 years. And that itself is like so marvelous, right? 125 years. But in Sikhi's Buddha's time, 70,000, so 125 is nothing, right? And Vesabu Buddha, the lifespan of human beings was 60,000. Kakusanda was 40,000 years. 𝓤𝓷𝓲𝓪, was 30,000. Kassapa Buddha was 20,000, Given Kassapa Buddha's time was 20,000 years old. For me, this lifespan is short, brief, and fleeting, A long-lived person lives for a century or a little more, The Buddha says if you're a long-lived person, you probably live for about 100 years old, and probably a little bit more, maybe 110, 120, I'm not sure, So, but certainly not 200 years old, Who can live up to 200 years old, right, But, during the past Buddhas, I mean, in Kassapa Buddha, 20,000 years, you can live, that long as a human being, great blessings, but of course, the quality of our human beings, is declining, in terms of our observance of sila, is degrading, So in tune of that, our lifetime also is like decreasing, because what the Buddha Sasana is actually going down, it's actually like it's limited, So once it's just the Buddha Sasana is also anatta, is also non-self, it is also subject to destruction, subject to cessation. So there will come a time, when people don't observe silas, and that's where our lives will continue to go downhill. So we have this sort of cycle, and the Buddha actually could actually foresee that, and then the Buddha could actually foresee, like Vipassi Buddha was awakened, at the root of a patala tree. Siki Buddha actually under a white mango tree. Vesapa Buddha was actually root of a sao tree. The sao tree actually was the tree, where Gautama Buddha actually passed into Paranibbana between two sao tree that burst into full bloom, right? The sao tree. So Vesapa Buddha actually was enlightened, under this sao tree. Kakusanda was awakened at the root of a sirisa tree. 𝓤𝓷𝓲𝓪 was actually awakened at the root of a cluster fig tree, And Kassapa was awakened at the root of a banyan tree, And I was actually awakened at the root of a peepal tree. As what we call the Bodhi tree, this peepal tree, So Vipassi, had a fine pair of chief disciples called Khanda and Tisa. You see, the Buddha could actually recollect down to the chief disciples of each Buddha, not just the three under the gain enlightenment, but also the chief disciples, Vipassi's chief disciples were called Khanda and Tisa. For Siki, it was actually, Abibu and Sambhava. Vesabu, was actually Sona and Uttara. Kakusanda Buddha was actually Vidura and Sanjiva. 𝓤𝓾𝓷𝓷𝓷 actually, actually had Biosa and Uttara. Kassapa actually had Tissa and Bharadvaja. And I have a pair of chief disciples called Sariputta and Moggallana. So you see, the Buddha could actually recall, all the way down to the minutest details, I mean, of course, the sutta goes on and on, a lot the details that the Buddha could recollect. You can imagine the marvelous and wonderful qualities of the Buddha. It's like, it's so incredible. It's so remarkable, so astounding. It's like we must actually get to know our master well. It's like we are Buddhists, right? Don't just know the Buddha superficially as like, oh, we pay homage. We offer this and that, but try to get to know the Buddha up close and personal. If you can read the suttas and what the Buddha actually is capable of doing, his all his wonderful qualities, it actually increases your faith, your saddha in the Buddha. The kind of conviction that you have, based on what you read in the suttas. And of course, this conviction is something that you hold it, because you have read the accounts of the Buddha. But once you continue to practice, in terms of seeing things, how things arise through conditions, causes and conditions, how sankhara arises through, they are dependently arisen through causes and conditions. And once you have actually broken through to this Dhamma, the abhisamanya, this true Dhamma, and the Dhamma I arises in you, then you actually attain Sotapatti and you become, a stream enterer. That's when your faith, becomes, an experiential, verified truth. Experientially, you have actually experientially verified it. It's like avijja pasada. Means it's like you don't really need to hold on to it tenaciously. Like, some religions say, oh, you must have faith. You mustn't let go of faith. I mean, faith it's like really important for you to go to heaven. I must have faith. I got to have faith. It's like, you're always, but if you're actually a Sotapanna, this faith is actually, it comes naturally, it becomes very convicted and conviction. You have this strong conviction, and it's actually this experientially verified conviction, faith, that you know for sure what the Buddha taught is actually true. There's nothing for me to be convinced by others that it's true, because I know for sure intrinsically it's true, because I've actually verified it through contemplations, through meditation. I know it's intrinsically true, and it's actually universally true. Whenever you talk about any sankharas, any dhammas, sabbhe dhamma anatta, all things, are actually non-self. They actually arise through causes and conditions, and there's actually void of a permanent unchanging self. It is there because it's dependently a reason, and it's dependently a reason, and there's nothing intrinsically permanent about it, and it's something that you actually know for sure, is intrinsically true, and you don't actually need to be convinced by others, and you become very established, and you have perfect views in what the Buddha's taught, and you don't need to go around looking for this Buddhist masters, or I heard that this Buddhist meditation master is an arahant. I want to go and check whether my understanding is right or not. You become independent of others, and what the Buddha actually taught is true, and you don't need to verify this by asking others whether this is true or not, because you know that it's true. So that is something that you actually develop once you're a Sotapanna. But to actually to become a Sotapanna, the where you actually have this avijja pasada, where you have this experiential this verified faith. First of all, you must actually get to know the Buddha, right, in terms of the qualities that he has, in terms of the teachings that actually he has taught you, right? Otherwise, how are you ever going to actually develop right view, in the Noble Eightfold Path? The pinnacle of it is actually right view. Right view is actually very important, where the Buddha says you must actually have so first of all, you must have actually this strong belief and faith in terms of what the Buddha has actually taught in terms of the mundane right view first. Of course, you may not have the super mundane right view in terms of understanding things, in terms of, anatta, in terms of seeing things, sabbe dhamma anatta. That is the transcendental right view, but the mundane right view itself, we must actually understand, like for example, you actually know, for example, what the Buddha taught, in terms of rebirth, in terms of, there's actually benefit, in terms of supporting your mother, your father, and there's actually spontaneous birth, there's actually what is actually considered a wholesome in terms of body, speech, and mind, what is unwholesome and what needs to be avoided, So you must have all this right view established first, So you need to know the Buddha in terms of his marvelous qualities, in terms of, his ability, and more importantly, it's actually for you to know, the marvelous quality of the Buddha, in terms of the teaching, how he's able to teach, the lay people, and also the monks, to actually bring them step by step, from being a Puthujjana all the way to arahantship, and the powers of the Buddha, they do not just are just not just limited in terms of the psychic powers, and in terms of his ability, to perform a lot of these psychic power miracles. Actually, the Buddha says, these psychic powers, are not important at all. Seriously, the Buddha says, what is more important is the power, the ability, the power to actually instruct. The power to teach. The power, for someone to teach. Someone to guide the person to understand step by step in terms of what the Dhamma actually teaches, and what the Dhamma entails, that is the power of instructions that the Buddha actually regards, as supreme, as most important compared to the psychic powers of, like walking on water, and transforming yourself into many, and then going through walls, and then flying up to the Brahma world, and holding the moon in your hand, and flying like a bird in the sky, and diving into the earth. The Buddha says, yes, all this, you can develop, but they are not important at all, and the Buddha says the most importantly is the power of instruction, power of guidance. That's why you can see the Buddha is so marvelous, that he's actually able to guide, um, you know, the monks, and also the lay people, in terms of actually knowing, what to actually teach them. For example, like the Buddha actually taught Yasa. Remember Yasa, the son of a rich man that was actually very disillusioned, about lives, as a in a rich family, and then he left his home, and then he actually met the Buddha. You see, the Buddha was actually able to guide him, and bring him a step by step, in terms of giving him, the graduated discourses of the Buddha, which is actually, what the Buddha actually used to guide the person, from not knowing the Dhamma at all the way, to become a Sotapanna and even an Arahant, So the Buddha talk about this 9 graduated discourses of the Buddha, and slowly bringing him, and then up to the point, where the mind becomes very very wieldy, very malleable, very able to be molded, like a metal, malleable, and the Buddha then talk about the teaching, which is actually special, to the Buddhas, which is the 4 noble truths, about the dukkha, about origin dukkha, about cessation of dukkha, and about the path leading to the cessation of dukkha. And after listening to this, right, lo and behold, Yasa, became a Sotapanna, and then the father came, and the Buddha used his psychic power, and then made this Yasa disappear, so that the father could not see him. And then the Buddha gave another discourse, and the father became a Sotapanna, and he became an Arahant. Yasa became an Arahant. So you see the power instruction, and even like this super Buddha as well. Remember the leper, the Buddha could actually see that he was ready, even though he was a leper, the Buddha knew that he was ready to become, a Sotapanna. So the power instruction itself, is so wonderful, not just the power of the psychic power the Buddha has, the remarkable power the Buddha that I showed just now, in terms of the well spewing out all this, all the unclean, and items, like the grass and rubbish, became clean. All these are like super normal powers that the Buddha has. But the Buddha, the range of the Buddha goes beyond that. The power of instruction, the power of bringing someone, knowing his temperament, to actually bring, um, the person from being a Putujana, really a worldling, uninstructed worldling, all the way to be, an Arya, a Sotapanna, all the way to an Arahant. That is the wonderful quality, that the Buddha actually, possesses, and that itself, is actually something that is so wonderful, that that it actually transcends just the supernormal powers, but at the same time, the Buddha actually, is very adept, at actually guiding and instructing. So this is something that we are human beings right now in this current world that we're living in, this current time we're living in. That is where our merits are not as good as those who were born during the Buddha's time. Because if you had the opportunity to meet the Buddha could actually use the supernormal power and know how to guide you, and to actually be able to penetrate the Dhamma so well. It's like he knew the temperament, whether he could actually use in terms of the ways, to actually bring you to see anatta, and like for example, now if you're practicing those ascetics in practicing fire summon, the Buddha could actually use the simile about fire burning at the sixth sense basis, and how the objects are impinged on us, and how our mind reacts to it with loba dosa moha, and how you should cultivate wisdom. So it's like the Buddha could actually like fine tune, the like craft the teaching according to what you are accustomed to. This is something that we actually lose out, compared to the people during that time, and of course you can read the suttas, but it's it's not as good if you actually have the Buddha right in front of you, not as effective, and the Buddha could guide you. So that's why right now, because of reading the suttas and interpreting it, and then because of all this literature written, post-canonical literature written, the 𝓤𝓷𝓲𝓷𝓷 and all the other like Abhidhamma and all this. So it's like now we have got so many teachers teaching different things, so the whole Buddhist fabric of society or fraternity in all over the world is very fragmented. We have got so many teachers, different teaching, different methods, different ways, of attaining enlightenment. So that's why the Buddha told Venerable Ananda, he said, questions about Vinaya, about Patimokkha, or disagreement over Patimokkha is actually trifling and not important. But disagreement over the spiritual path to enlightenment, that itself, would actually be to the destruction, to the is not to the benefit, and is actually very destructive, to the Buddha sasana. So that's why we are having this situation right now, where we are not able to actually know the true path, and the Buddha's teaching is now being a lot of things are being added into the Buddha's teaching. So if you read the suttas and and if you compare against a lot of the teachings which are taught, you find that there's a bit of disparity. So that is where we need to know the Buddha's teaching, in its pristine, in its unadulterated form, based on what the suttas say, and not rely on other post-canonical literature. You can look at 𝓤𝓷𝓲𝓷 and Abhidhamma, but as a point of reference, as some teachers say, with a pinch of salt, but you must actually go back to the suttas, and actually be sure, what the Buddha actually taught. Otherwise, it's very easy that we actually deviate and go, a path that's actually not the Noble Eightfold Path, but it actually end up, looking at, all the, the Miccha-ditthi, all the way to, the wrong, Miccha Samadhi, So that is something that, we need to, that's why we actually, it is our responsibility, to actually know, what the Buddha actually taught based on suttas, and not just rely, on what you hear, like for example, some teachers actually teach, that you shouldn't actually read your mind, reading the mind for example, watching your mind and reading the mind, it is only for anagamis. Have you heard that teaching before? I've heard that teaching being taught by some teachers okay, and they said you shouldn't read your mind. You should just go back to rising, falling, and and go back to your breath, and just watch it come and go and that sort of thing, But um and they said you shouldn't actually watch your mind, shouldn't read your mind, you should just don't meddle with your mind, that is the Mara's playground, and they say that, and then come back only to your primary object of rising, falling, or in and out breath. That is totally contrary to what the Buddha taught, especially when you read the Ati Yoko Pariyaya Sutta. The Buddha says there's one method if you use you can attain arahantship in this life, and that what is it? It's actually watching your mind, watching your mind, how it reacts to the external sense object, and how they impinge on your sixth sense basis, and how you react to it, whether your mind reacts to it, with loba, dosa, moha, and this is what we call chitta nupassana, in MN10, in the Satipatthana Sutta, and that's where you actually, watch it, and then you're supposed to actually contemplate, how it arises, through causes and conditions, and that's where you actually apply Sati Sampajanya. That's where the Sampajanya part comes in, where you apply Yoniso Manasikara to see how this arises through causes and conditions, to see the intrinsically non-self nature of it, It's not for you to just watch, come and go, come and go, come and go, and don't watch your mind, In fact, the Buddha actually teaches Kaya Gata Sati. Kaya Gata Sati is actually where watching your mind, how your mind reacts to external sense bases. So if you teach people by saying, do not watch your mind, and you only watch your mind when you become an anagami, then you are actually going astray and, going contrary and misrepresenting what the Buddha actually says, And also, if you're an anagami, this loba and dosa has already been eradicated and uprooted, How can you watch loba and dosa? The factors of loba dosa, if really be eradicated as an anagami, how are you going to watch loba dosa in your mind? If you teach that, only anagamis are allowed to watch the mind. So that's why it's a lot of these things which run contrary to the Buddha's teaching. That's why this, as we have celebrated Wesak Day, it is actually our responsibility, not just by just performing homage, by say, making offerings, to the Buddha and all this. Yeah, that's important, but that is not the highest homage to the Buddha, In DN 16, last days of the Buddha before he passes into Parinibbana, he actually said, if you to the for someone who actually practice in accordance with the Dhamma as taught by the Tathagata, that person actually confers the highest homage and blessing to the Tathagata, not by, for example, the devas showering the sandalwood powder from the sky, or or throwing the coral flowers from the heavens, or the Gandhabas playing, all the musicians are playing nice music to praise the Buddha, knowing that the Buddha is going to pass Nibbana, they quickly, want to pay homage. The Buddha says, this is actually not the highest homage. The highest homage that you actually can confer upon the Tathagata is when you practice it in accordance, practice it well and conscientiously and assiduously, in accordance with what the Buddha actually taught, in accordance with the Dhamma. If you can do that, then you have actually paid the highest and most honored respect to the Tathagata. The Buddha says you would have actually practice it such that you attain the fruit of the Dhamma, and this is what the Buddha actually hopes, aspires for sentient beings to achieve, so that you are out of samsara. That's the great compassion the Buddha has. It's not by showing all the external acts of making offerings, all this. These are important, for you to affirm your faith in the Buddha, but don't just stop at the superficial level. Go beyond that. Understand the Buddha's teaching. What the Buddha actually, what is the range of the Buddha in terms of his qualities? What is the power of the Buddha, in terms of his teaching, in terms of what he's capable of teaching, and go beyond that. What has he taught, the Dhamma, in terms of, all the Noble Eightfold Path, all the way to right view, all the way to right effort, right samadhi. How do you establish right samadhi? Why do you need to meditate? And understand all these to know the overall the Dhamma journey that you want to go, to achieve, this nibbana, as your destination, right? Even if it's not nibbana, as long as you attain Sotapaddi itself in this life, that itself, I can give you a thumbs up already. It's like you have not lived your life in vain, and you have actually practiced it well, such that you have attained Sotapaddi. You have developed the Dhamma eye, and you have seen through the Dhamma, and you have experientially verified it, and you have this avijja pasada, and you are actually destined for enlightenment up to 7 lifetimes, this niyati, and in these 7 lifetimes, up to 7 lifetimes, you can never reborn in the woeful plains. How wonderful is that? It's like you can. It's better than any treasures in the world, or you become the king of any kingdom. That is nothing, compared you give it a king Sotapati, So that's why in this Vesak Day, I actually hope that as we celebrated this Vesak Day, I hope we can actually get to know the Buddha, up close and personal. Don't just know the Buddha at the superficial level. Go down deep to the level of these teachings, so that you become a Sotapanna. Then once you become a Sotapanna, you have strong conviction, the so-called unshakable, but actually sada, but actually is actually experientially verified faith. So once you are once you are able to attain that experiential verified faith, then you can never be shaken by anyone. So that's how you can be firm in the Buddha's teaching, and and the Buddha in the Dhamma. So you're not, even if some other religious parties come and tell you, what the Buddha taught is not correct, you should actually look at this and that, why don't you explore other religions, that can give you everlasting happiness? In your mind, you know for sure, what the Buddha taught is really true, because you have actually verified it yourself. So you just smile and say, okay, it doesn't matter, we can agree, disagree, that sort of thing, and you don't even have to argue anything, So it's this kind of spirit, that we should actually develop, not just by just knowing Buddha superficially, but you should actually get to know the Buddha, really, really well, like as a close friend, and to know actually what the Buddha actually, taught, So actually this sutta that I extracted from this MN123, of course, that is actually the main good sutta, that I actually wanted to share with you. Okay, but um just very quickly, I just want to actually highlight to you, in terms of what I've just shared with you, in terms of this marvelous and and incredible qualities of the Buddha, that that even the monks, during the Buddha's time, they all know, the power that the Buddha has, in terms of the psychic powers, in terms of the power of instruction, in terms of guiding someone, all the way to arahantship, is really wonderful. We really have a Buddha, who is so remarkable and so special. That if you actually are a Buddhist, practicing, the Dhamma, you are somebody who's really, really fortunate, that you came across the teachings of the Buddha in this lifetime. So many people, haven't had a chance to know the Dhamma, but you know the Dhamma, and that itself is really very rare. It's so wonderful. It's really so remarkable. That's why we owe it to ourselves, to actually understand what the Buddha actually taught. And this MN123 actually demonstrate this very amply, very sufficiently. You see here, this MN123 is about the remarkable qualities of the Buddha, and this sutta, actually, it has some resemblance on DN14, where it was about this group of monks. So he actually went for their alms round, and then they actually gathered around, and then they have a conversation, and then so they did then, after they had their meals, then this group of monks actually had a discussion. They started discussing. It says it's amazing, it's astounding, it's incredible the great might, the great power of the Tathagata, in that the Tathagata knows of the awakened ones of the past, those totally unbound, who have cut through the objectification. Objectification means proliferation, who have cut the cycle, who have put an end to the round, who have lifted away all the sufferings and stress, So we see, such was the birth of those blessed ones, such of their name, their clan, their virtue, their Dhamma, their discernment, their mental dwelling, their release, So this was actually, probably this sutta actually took place after DN 14, where the Buddha actually spoke about, remember, the Vipassi Buddha, Sikhi Buddha, Vesabu Buddha, and also the four Buddhas we've had, you remember, including Gautama Buddha, and so that's why after this this sutta, then came MN123, where this group of monks actually exclaim, wow, how wonderful the Buddha could actually recall down to these very minutest details in terms of the past Buddhas, and where they who they were, what were their clans, their lifetimes, where they attained enlightenment, how they taught the Dhamma, When this was said, this Venerable Ananda, told the monks, he said, Tathagatas are both amazing and endowed with amazing qualities, both astounding and endowed with astounding qualities. Then this the Buddha, he emerged from his seclusion in the late afternoon. Sometimes the Buddha in the afternoon, he went into this seclusion, he went into this meditation. Probably, he was absorbed in jhana, I mean, the pleasant abiding, of arahants. They always go into these jhanas, and they're happy, there's a happy state. So he went to the meeting hall, and on arrival, he sat down on one seat seated. So seated there, he asked the monks, hey, what were you all actually discussing before I actually came in and interrupted you all? Then of course the monk said, just now, Bhante, after the meal, we gathered around and we started discussing about the amazing qualities of the Tathagata, that you were able to recollect down to the smallest, minutest details about the past Buddhas, all the way to 91 aeons, How long is that, And he was able to recollect the three Buddhas in the past aeon and the current aeon, about the four Buddhas, the four Buddhas, including Gautama. So you see, only 4 plus 3 Buddhas, not just 24 Buddhas that were mentioned earlier, Why, see, so that's why I see the Venerable Ananda said, he said, friends, Tathagatas are actually incredible, So then the Buddha actually told Venerable Ananda, that being the case, he asked Ananda, do elaborate to a great extent the power of the Tathagata, See, from here, the Venerable Ananda gave a different perspective of the power and the remarkable and the magnificent, and incredible and astounding qualities of the Buddha, He said here, Venerable Ananda said, mindful and alert means sati sampajanya, means alert, The Bodhisattva appeared among the Tusita hosts, So so that is the first marvelous quality. Means the Bodhisattva, he actually was reborn in the Tusita heaven. That is actually the first marvelous quality. And then the second marvelous quality means with sati sampajanya, Bodhisattva stayed in this Tusita heaven for the full lifespan in Tusita heaven. Means Tathagata stayed, means Bodhisattva, before he became enlightened, this Bodhisattva, when Gautama Buddha was a Bodhisattva, he actually spent the full lifespan in Tusita heaven. Then, with Sati Sampajanya, then this Bodhisattva, descended from Tusita heaven and alighted, into the mother's womb. It was time for the Bodhisattva to actually, be reborn, and to attain full enlightenment. So when the time came, when there was darkness, in the world, and the Dhamma, has actually been lost, There was no turning of the wheel of the Dhamma. So this Bodhisattva, knew it was time for him to descend from Tusita heaven, down into this Queen Maya's womb, and this Bodhisattva, right, mindful alert, he descended from Tusita host, alighted, when this happened, when he went into the mother's womb, a great radiance, measureless radiance surpassing the effulgence of the Devas appeared in the cosmos, and even in the intergalactic void of the unrestrained darkness, pitch black darkness where even the light and sun and so mighty doesn't reach, even the great measureless radiance surpassing the effulgence of Devas appeared. Actually, if you read this suttas, it does make you wonder, right, that this intergalactic void where light does not even go in, means it's like it's total darkness. So actually, the scientists have actually discovered there's this black hole, right, in the universe, where everything is actually absorbed, so that it's darkness, right? So the Buddha could actually, during that time, the Buddha could actually see that this intergalactic void, where there was actually pitch black darkness, where everything was actually absorbed and it was pitch black inside. Even in this black hole, there was this great radiance, effulgence that actually appeared in this so-called, black hole, this intergalactic void. When this Bodhisattva actually descended, into Queen Maya's womb. So this 10,000-fold cosmos, 10,000 galaxies, cosmos are galaxies, right? Each galaxy has a sun. Each sun actually has this these different realms of existence. So 10,000-fold cosmos shivered and quivered and quaked, while the great measureless radiance appeared in the cosmos, surpassing the effulgence of Devas. This thousands of galaxies, where there was this shivering and quaving and there was earthquake, and this Bodhisattva, with Sati Sampajanya, when he actually descended into the mother's womb, 4 male devas came to guard, him from 4 directions. 4 devas came to guard Queen Maya and to guard, the Bodhisattva as well. May no human or non-human beings or anyone at all harm the Bodhisattva. And and during this time, when he was actually in the mother's womb, the sutta here says that the Bodhisattva's mother, who was Queen Maya, was naturally virtuous. The Queen Maya observed his precepts. He abstained from taking life, from taking from stealing, from sensual misconduct, from telling lies, from taking of intoxicants. She naturally observed the 5 precepts. And then Queen Maya also has no intention, imbued with sensuality towards men, and the Bodhisattva's mother was inaccessible to any man with an impassioned mind. So during this time, this Queen Maya, actually did not actually have any sensual desire towards men, and he actually she was actually celibate, and the Bodhisattva during this when he was his mother's womb, went around, she actually she received the 5 chords of sensual enjoyment. Means she was actually endowed, in terms of all the 5 chords of, in terms of the eye, the nose, the ears, the touch. She actually had the 5 strings, the 5 chords of sensual enjoyment, because she was actually bearing Bodhisattva in her womb, and the Buddha, this Queen Maya, she had no illness, and she was happy and uninflicted, and she saw the Bodhisattva within her womb, with all his limbs, with no inferior faculties. So Queen Maya could actually see the Bodhisattva, within her womb, with all his limbs perfect, and no inferior faculties. And then another marvelous quality is that when the Buddha had been born 7 days after, Queen Maya actually passed away and reappeared in Tusita heaven. So that is the case for all Bodhisattvas. So 7 days after Bodhisattva had been born, so the mother actually passed away and then reborn into Sita heaven. And And another marvelous quality that Venerable Ananda mentioned that other women gave birth by having the fetus in the womb between 9 and 10 lunar months, but not for the Bodhisattva's mother. She actually gave birth to the Bodhisattva exactly 10 lunar months. So the Bodhisattva actually stayed in the mother's womb for 10 lunar months. And of course, another marvelous quality that Venerable Ananda said that while other women gave birth, while sitting or lying down, Queen Maya actually gave birth to the Bodhisattva while standing, yeah, in Lumbini Park, right? As we can see, as we know from the commentaries, and the Bodhisattva actually left his mother's womb when the Buddha means when this Bodhisattva actually was reborn. When the Bodhisattva left his mother's womb, the Devas received him first, and then human beings. Means the Devas received the Bodhisattva, and then the Bodhisattva. Before he reached the ground, 4 male Devas received him and set him in front of his mother, saying, "Be gratified, O Queen, a son of great influence, has been born to you." Means 4 male Devas actually held, the Bodhisattva, gently in their arms, and then showed the Bodhisattva, to the mother. Queen Maya said, "Oh, rejoice, you have given birth to a son of great influence, And this Bodhisattva left his mother's womb immaculate, means pristine and pure, unsullied by fluid, unsullied by mucus, unsullied by blood, unsullied by lymph, pure, very pure, just as when a gemstone is placed on kasi cloth, neither would the gemstone sully the cloth, nor the cloth the gemstone, So, and then when the Bodhisattva was born, 2 streams of water appeared from the sky, one cool and the other warm, to wash the Bodhisattva and his mother. So 2 streams of water appeared from the sky, probably from the Devas, one cool and one warm, and to wash the Bodhisattva and his mother, And as soon as the Bodhisattva was born, this Bodhisattva actually stood steadily with his feet on the ground, and facing north. He took 7 steps, while a white parasol was held over him, also possibly by the Devas as well. Surveying all the directions, he made a bellowing statement, means he made a declaration, "I'm the foremost of the world, I'm chief of the world, I'm best in the world," And when the Bodhisattva left, came out from the mother's womb and was born, a great measureless radiance, like what I mentioned before, appeared in the whole universe, even including in the black hole in the universe, where there was actually no light could actually be seen, because this black hole, I don't know, maybe the physicists will know this, had this great magnetic field that could absorb everything, including speed of light into it, so that it is really black, But during this time when the Buddha was born, and came out from Queen Maya's womb, this great light actually appeared in the entire universe, in thousands of galaxies, including this black hole in the universe, So all the beings in this black hole, and the Buddha, Sutta says, actually there are beings living in a black hole, And they know that a being has been born, a great being has been born. So you see, so Venerable Ananda gave a different perspective in terms of qualities of the Buddha, in terms of, from the faith perspective, in terms of, how the Buddha, the Bodhisattva, was actually reborn, in the Tusita heaven, how he stayed there, how he descended, and while he was in the womb, he was protected by the male devas, so that no harm could come to him and the mother, and all the wonderful things, the mother was actually very upheld sila, and all the wonderful the qualities of the Buddha, which was recorded in this MN123, from the faith perspective, from Venerable Ananda. And towards the end, you read carefully, this is actually the meaty part, I would say, the important part of the sutta. The Buddha says, that being the case, Ananda, you can hold this too to be an amazing and astounding quality of a Tathagata. This is where the case where feelings are known to the Tathagata when they arise, when known when they remain, known when they go to their end, Perceptions are known to the Tathagata when they arise, when they remain, when they end. Thoughts, are known to the Tathagata when they arise, when they remain, and known when they go to the end. You can hold these two Ananda to be an amazing and incredible quality of the Tathagata. So what the Buddha actually says, other than what you have just mentioned in terms of the Bodhisattva, in terms of the marvelous qualities of the Buddha, in all the way, from Bodhisattva until now, the Buddha says, you can actually, include this also, in terms of the marvelous quality. In that, the Buddha knows feelings, as they arise, as they are, as they cease. Perceptions as they are, as they arise, as they are, as they cease. And thoughts, as they arise, as they are, as they cease. So you see, so what does this mean? So the Buddha actually shows that the Buddha actually gave told Ananda that this marvelous quality is actually where the Buddha actually has got sati sampajanya, perfect sati sampajanya. He knows exactly when the feelings, and then also the perceptions and also the thoughts, means in terms of the five aggregates, in terms of how the five aggregates actually arise, and they are there, and then they cease. Okay, so actually if you read this part, if you compare this against another sutta of AN 4.41, actually the two actually resemble each other. They mirror each other, you see. In 4.41, the Buddha, remember, and I actually discussed this last time, about the 4 kinds of samadhi that you actually should practice, Then the Buddha talked about the jhanas, remember? And then the second one is actually you practice the samadhi, in terms of the light, in terms of, developing the samadhi by actually reflecting on the light, that's actually where you actually train, to have psychic powers, right? And then the third one, it's actually where you develop, the Buddha says a samadhi, when developed and pursued, lead to mindfulness and alertness. This is the case where the feelings are known to the monk, as they arise, as they persist, as they subside. Perceptions, as they arise, they exist and they subside. And the same goes for thoughts. This is the development of samadhi, then when development and pursuit leads to mindfulness and alertness. Means it leads to sati sampajanya. Means you are alert. This is the first step, right, in meditation, where you actually need to have sati, to be fully aware, what how your mind reacts, right, when the external sense objects are come into contact with your sense spaces, then when there's contact, when there's actually the sense object and your sense base, then there arises consciousness, right? And then when the three that come together becomes contact. With contact, then comes, perceptions, feelings, and volitions, remember? So the Buddha says that if you're aware all these that arise, from you, then you actually have got sati, So this is actually what the Buddha says, that this is actually the remarkable quality of the Tathagata, because you have full mindfulness, But of course, if you actually look at MN10 itself, having just mindfulness alone is not good enough, I mean, you need to actually then continue, from practicing the mindfulness, you must actually continue to practice in terms of development of wisdom through sampajanya. So that's why if you actually look at in terms of MN10, this Satipatthana Sutta, the Buddha actually in this MN10, speaks of, this Vedanupassana, where you actually look at contemplation in terms of feelings, right? Okay, so he said, you read here in this sutta, he says he remains focused on the phenomena of origination with regard to feelings, the phenomenon of passing away, and the phenomenon of origin and passing with regard to the feeling. Means you actually know the causes and conditions are why this feeling arises. It's not just knowing feeling as a reason, but you must know why and how it arises, So that's why in Satipatthana itself, being aware of this feelings, perceptions, and thoughts arise in your mind, upon the sense contact, that is the first step, which is a remarkable quality of the Buddha. But if you look at MN10, you need to go one step further to develop sampajanya, the yoniso manasikara must come in, the wise reflection to develop wisdom must come in, and that's where you actually look at the dependent origination and cessation, of feelings, perceptions, and volitions. So if you look at this MN10, even in terms of the Citta Nupassana, the Buddha also talks about, in this way, he remains focused internally on the mind, internally, externally, and he remains focused on the phenomena of origination. Look at the word origination, means how does it arise with regard to the Citta Nupassana in terms of the defilements. How does it arise? On the phenomena of passing away, how does it cease? And the phenomena of rising and fall, or of passing and cessation. So from here we see that this sati, is actually the first step itself. You must be aware, but that is just a data collection. Means that you only know, but you must make use of the data and analyze it, and actually see how they arise through causes and conditions. That's why this MN10, it doesn't just stop at just knowing only, just knowing arising, passing, arising, passing away, rising, passing away. Like some meditation teachers just look at it passively, arise, comes and goes, comes and goes, comes and goes, and just be passive. Actually, if you look at the sutta, the Buddha teaches that you must put in active effort, to actually see, how this arises through causes and conditions, So that is the Yoniso Manasikara part, to see the non-self nature, of how this feelings, perceptions, and volitions arise. That's why in AN 4.41, the Buddha says, if you just look at what the phenomena, the feelings, perceptions, thoughts as they arise and pass away, this only actually sharpens your mindfulness, and your alertness. But in order for you to end the asavas, means to actually uproot all the defilements to attain enlightenment and to attain nibbana, right? You must actually develop the samadhi, where the arising and falling with reference to the five aggregates subject to clinging, such is form, such is origination, such is passing away, such is feeling, such is perception, such is volitional formation, sankhara, and such is consciousness, the vijnana, So that's why you actually need to know these five, aggregates, in terms of, how they arise, how they fall through causes and conditions. Like I always actually, discuss and share in my Dhamma talk, right? It is very important that you develop not just sati, but sati sampajanya, and you need to actually apply this by looking at how this perceptions, and feelings, perceptions, volitions arise through causes and conditions, because we all know, from all the various suttas I've shared before, especially, like this Silavan Sutta. Remember this SN 22.122. In order for us to actually realize this realization of non-self, remember Venerable Sariputta says you must actually reflect the five aggregates in terms of, that is actually a disease, a boil. You must actually contemplate it as empty, sunyata, and also non-self, anatta. So even if you are, if you are a well-practiced monk, you should practice that, and you might actually be attain Sotapatti. And once you become a Sotapanna, this Venerable Sariputta says you must continue to practice in the same way by looking at the five aggregates in this in terms of anatta, and to actually understand the real nature. Then you slowly, you become, you are able to develop yourself, and beyond, Sotapatti, you can attain Sakadagami, Anagami, all the way to Arahant. It's a very same practice by actually contemplating five aggregates in terms of this anatta, and of course in this MN14, let me see, MN148, remember about the 6 sets of 6, remember? The MN148, yeah. Wait, let me see if I got the sutta here. Yeah, MN14. Wait, probably not here. Let me see. MN148. Yeah, I think it's MN148, in terms of looking at 6 sets of 6, where the Buddha actually integrates, remember, the 5 aggregates, the completion of 5 aggregates into 6 sense bases, by actually establishing ourselves in the 6 sense basis, and actually see how, the 6 sets of 6, arise. Remember the one that we actually spoke about in terms of this 6 sets of 6, which is actually in MN148, in this 6 sets of 6, and also from Nandaka Sutta itself, MN146 also. Remember, Ananda also taught the bhikkhunis exactly the same way of how you actually contemplate in terms of this 6 sets of 6 through the 6 sense doors, looking at the 6 qualities, that actually arise, the 6 dhammas that arise, in terms of, the 6 sense bases, external, internal, and then consciousness, contact, and then feelings, perceptions, volitions, and how they actually interweave, through causes and conditions, and then you can see the non-self nature, in terms of breaking through, and seeing the non-self nature of existence and sankharas. So that itself is actually what the Buddha taught, in terms of how we are able to actually, uproot this ignorance, which the Buddha says we are just like a dog, running around like a dog, like a dog on a leash, tied to a post, a strong post. Because what? Because of this ignorance, we haven't actually been able to penetrate the Four Noble Truths itself, and this Noble Truth of dukkha, we know that, it's because, all sankharas are actually anatta, that's why, it's actually suffering, this sankhara dukkha, this viparanama dukkha, everything is always in a state of flux, that's why everything is in a state of deterioration, it never stays the same. That's why it's such a suffering, to all of us. But as long as you don't understand and haven't experientially, and understood the First Noble Truth, you haven't experientially understood it, not just conceptually, but if you haven't understood it experientially, then you're not able to eradicate, you're not able to actually eradicate, and eradicates the cause of suffering, which is clinging, because of your ignorance, you cling to the I, the mind, the I am, so that is the second, noble truth, because of this clinging. But once you understand, then, under the third noble truth, you can actually overcome it if you actually understood, the non-self nature, of all sankharas. That's where you actually, you actually let go, and you do not cling anymore, and you abandon this clinging, and that's where, you actually attain, the full cessation of suffering, and the ending of samsara, and the way to attain this is actually the fourth noble truth, which is actually noble eightfold path. So if you're able to penetrate this four noble truth actually in a profound way, then the Buddha says you will actually attain the Aryanhood, you're actually considered, as an Arya, as a noble, as an enlightened being, and the Buddha says the only thing to do that is actually by looking at non-self nature, and I always say this, emphasizes, this non-self is actually the crown jewel of the Buddha's teaching, and it is only through this realization of non-self that you're able to actually uproot the ignorance, and actually uproot all the asavas, and able to overcome, all the suffering. So that's why, in this MN123, the Buddha actually then ascribed, the last marvelous quality as what? As having the sati, having the mindfulness to know, what has arisen in you, in terms of, the feelings, the perceptions, and the volitions that has arisen. Then, you become aware of it, then that is a marvelous quality. But if you look at the other suttas, for example, MN10, AN 4.41, so all these, the Buddha actually talks about, that you must actually not just contemplate it in terms of in terms of knowing it only, but just by seeing, just by seeing, coming and going, coming and going. But the Buddha says, you must actually go beyond that, you must actually go beyond that, and actually by looking at what? And looking at the non-self nature, of sankharas, Yeah, correct. Just MN, just now I missed it. This MN148, which is 6 sets of 6, and also MN146, which is advice from Nandaka. So you see here, I want to share with you this sutta, where the Buddha just talks that, you shouldn't just, just look at things come and go, it's not good enough. You must have this wise reflection, which is yoniso manasikara, Yes, I want to highlight this to you. This AN 5.28 it also shows the importance that we actually know that sati alone is not enough, but you must have sati sampajanya. Okay, for example, this book of 5.28 the Buddha actually talks about development of the Samma Samadhi, the noble eightfold path. In this the noble Samma Samadhi, right? Then the Buddha says that this right concentration, Samma Samadhi, there's 5 factors, 5 factors. And if you can see here, the Buddha actually talks about this 5 factors of Samma Samadhi in the noble eightfold path. Remember, Samma Samadhi, as you know, in the sutta, it actually refers to any of the 4 jhanas. The first to the 4th jhana, any one of them is actually Samma Samadhi, right? Okay. And the Buddha says this Samma Samadhi comprises 5 factors. You must remember, Samma Samadhi have 5 factors. So what are these 5 factors? The Buddha actually talks about the 4 jhanas as the first 4 factors. And we know the 4 jhanas, the Buddha talks about the formula about the 4 jhanas in terms of vitaka, vichara, in terms of the rapture, the pleasure, piti, sukha, ekagata, and all this the Buddha talks about this 4 jhanas and you see the last one, after 4 jhanas, the last one, you see, if you talk about Samma Samadhi, people say Samma Samadhi is just basically development concentration only, just remember so-called concentration, composure, and there's nothing more than that. It's just Samma Samadhi. But actually, if you look at these 5 factors, the 5th factor, the Buddha says, again, a bhikkhu has grasped well the object of reviewing, attended to it well, sustained to it well, and penetrate to it well with wisdom, with wisdom. Just as one person might look upon another as one standing might look upon one sitting down might look upon one lying down. So which means the Buddha says you must actually contemplate and actually contemplate it and reflect it with clarity, just like one person might look upon another person standing, one person might look upon another as one standing, will look down, will look upon another person sitting, and then the person sitting look upon a person who is lying down. Means you can actually see the person very clearly, right? So it's like, so too, a bhikkhu has grasped well the object of reviewing, attended it well, sustained it well, and penetrate well with wisdom. This is the 5th development of the noble 5-factor right concentration. So this is actually the 5th factor of actually Samma Samadhi. Samma Samadhi is not just about developing the composure and the ability to observe the objects well, and to sharpen your sati to the extent you're able to actually contemplate all the sankharas that arise in your mind. You become aware. That is just a sati part. But the sampajanya, the wise reflection part, where you apply yoniso manasikara, it is also a very important factor of Samma Samadhi, where you need to actually contemplate with wisdom. You need to actually apply effort to activate your mind, to actually reflect, based on wisdom. Otherwise, if you just look at things come and go, that is just a sati part only. But it's actually not the full spectrum, of Samma Samadhi. That's why, as I mentioned, this Samma Samadhi, is actually something that's very important, and it actually entails, being aware, contemplating the 5 aggregates, and then just I mentioned to you in terms of the 6 sets of 6, and how do you contemplate the 5 aggregates? It's actually through the 6 sense basis. And how do you then make sure that you stay focused on the 6 sense basis? This is where the Buddha actually asks us to actually read your mind, anchor your sati, by actually knowing what is happening to your mind, what goes on your mind, by reading your mind and actually watching your mind closely. That's why the blessed one says, even if a monk is not skilled in the ways of the minds of others, means if you don't have psychic power to actually read others' mind, he should train himself. I was skilled in reading my own mind. See, the Buddha is encouraging the monks to read their own minds, And how is the monk skilled in reading their own minds? Of course, the Buddha here talks about the in terms of um how someone actually sees the dirt, blemish, they will try to quickly remove it, and this is actually the very same teaching that Buddha says. If you actually just like when you see in a mirror or a bucket of water, if you see that there's dirt or there's actually food residue on your mouth or your lips, you quickly try to remove it, right? By using a piece of tissue paper, or by washing your mouth so that your face, or your mouth, is actually clean again. It's the same. Similarly, the Buddha says, as long as some defilement, arises in your mind, you should actually read your mind and watch your mind carefully, that there is actually this dirt in your mind, that you should actually quickly remove it. So that's where you have sati when you know, and then sampajana when you remove it. So that's why in this MN123, what the Buddha is actually trying to highlight to us in this marvelous quality is, you must actually emulate the Buddha in terms of having this sati, just like this satipatthana, by actually being aware, in terms of your body, in terms of feelings, in terms of your mind, the chittanupassana, and also in terms of the Dhamma, in terms of our 5 aggregates, and the 6 sense bases are all under the Dhammanupassana. So you must actually know first, you must anchor your sati in this first. The sati must be strong. Then only then, when your data collection is complete and is strong, then only then you can analyze, right? If your data through sati is not even strong, how are you going to analyze? How are you going to apply yoniso manasikara? So that's why the Buddha says this is the remarkable quality of the Buddha, to have this sati. And from the other suttas, you must know that you must also apply sati sampajanya. So if you apply this method of this Kayagata Sati constantly in your daily lives, not just at meditation retreats, but every day, wherever you go, whenever you see something, you become angry, you become greedy, you become delusional, deluded, then you can quickly apply this Sati Sampajanya, this Kayagata Sati, by actually emulating the quality or the marvelous quality of the Buddha, by first of all knowing there's a reason, then seeing how it arises through concepts and conditions, like I mentioned in 6 sets of 6 and also in Nandaka Sutta. So on this Vesak Day, Vesak Day we had just last Wednesday, since we're celebrated, but I want all of you to actually get to know the Buddha really well, not just superficially, but of course it's important, to strengthen our faith, but I would urge you to know the Buddha closer, to understand the power of the Buddha in guiding, in instructing, knowing the beautiful Dhamma that the Buddha has taught, that will enable us to actually slowly reduce and also to wear down our suffering in terms of our clinging, in terms of our grasping, because more and more we see non-self, the more and more we see emptiness, sunyata, the more and more disenchanted you are, and dispassion you are, and slowly you will be able to let go. And you can let go through wisdom. You can't force yourself to let go. You have to let go through wisdom, gradually and incrementally. Just like the Buddha says, Dhamma, is something that's gradual. It's not something abrupt. Just like the sea, seabed, it goes down gradually. It doesn't like suddenly just goes down very deep. So you have to just practice it well. Just like what the Buddha has actually urged us to. So I will urge all of you on this, as we celebrated Vesak Day, to really, put in the effort, to strive, as much as you can to actually see this non-self nature in sankharas, so that you can lead to let go, you can let go more, and and hopefully in this very lifetime you can achieve Sotapatti, and then you have really lived your life, as a human being really, really well, with so much of, you really value it well, and you have actually not, live in vain, you know, and you can actually then virtually take a slow boat out of samsara, out of 7 lifetimes, either as a human or devas. You know, that itself, you know, would be the most fulfilling reward that you can give the Buddha, you know, on this Vesak day. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Brother Loo, for today's sharing. Now, with all the merits that we accrued so far, let us dedicate those merits to all beings, whether they are seen or unseen. Akasata ca bummata devanaga mahitika punyang tam anumoditva ciram rakkantu loka sasanang etta wata ca amhehi sampadang punya sampadang sabbe dewa sabbe bhuta sabbe satta anumodantu sabba sampatti siddhya. Idang me nyati nang hotu sukita hontu nyatayo. Idang me nyati nang hotu sukita hontu nyatayo. Idang me nyati nang hotu sukita hontu nyatayo. Aspirations. Imina punya kammena mame bala samagamo satang samagamo hotu yavani bana pattiya. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Thank you everyone for watching. For other videos, please visit the links below. Bye bye for now.